That's something I've thought about a lot in the perspective of relationships, in that the best relationships that I see, or the most successful ones that I see, are ones where people actually join with their cups full.
Hmm.
So they're already overflowing when they join. And in that sense, they're already content on the way that they are, or the life that they've been living. And from there, they can pour into each other while they both evolve at the same time. So it becomes this very interesting synergistic relationship when you see two people enter into a relationship when they're not figuring out some deep life trauma or getting over a breakup or any of those things, when they're already at a point where they're content with being alone and by themselves, and they're in a very good place spiritually and psychologically. And what are your opinions on that?
That's something that I'm very passionate about talking about. I believe that not only are relationships additive, as I said, but I always view relationships as three elements. There's whole individuals, and when they come to, and then there is also the relationship. So there's like two individuals and their relationship. And so I don't resonate, and I really don't like the term of like, you complete me, they're my other half, and things like that. Like, I have a very, like, I'm not ashamed, like I have a very intimate relationship with my partner, and I'm so proud of what I have with him. And I like to talk about it, and I like to highlight other people that I just see consciousness in their relationship, because of what we are displayed in society. And I honestly, like, I'm so passionate about this because I remember when I was 19 years old, and I thought I was weird for what I wanted in a relationship, and I thought that it was odd. And then once I went out and found people that had similar ideas, I just felt more seen. And so I truly believe in, like, Colin Wright is someone that has really impacted me on this too, of like, we are two trees, and like the branches may intertwine, that is completely fine, but at the end of the day, like, we are two whole people. And yeah, I mean, additionally to that, something else I want to say, I always thought that, like, I was on this journey of independence, and like, I didn't want to be in a relationship before I met my current partner. And I thought I had to do all my healing and figure all of my shit out before I got into a relationship. And yes, there was some healing, or just things I had to go through on my own. But honestly, additionally to that, there's been some of the deepest healing I've found by having someone that knows me on such a deep level, and having such an intimate relationship, that they're able to really shed light onto parts of myself that, like, I thought were going to stay hidden forever. And to have someone hold that space for me while I do that healing has also been super amazing as well.
That's so
That's a bit of my
beautiful.
tangent.
Hmm. How do you retain your individualism while
Ooh.
experiencing that?
That is a great question, because I know, at least for myself, especially meeting, like, I totally get it, the rose tinted glasses. And like, when you do find someone that just like, I find often people are like, I didn't even know this person could exist. And I for sure felt that way. And it is such a beautiful thing where, like, you're just so in love that you kind of lose yourself. I think that there is beauty to that. But I just really do think that spending time alone is so important, by yourself, and just really communicating what your needs and what your boundaries are. And it's not wrong if you are more of an introverted person, or you do need that time by yourself. And another thing that for me was huge for me, and just really got me into trouble when I didn't do this, is having relationships outside of your relationship, and understanding that your partner cannot fulfill all of your needs, and just being honest about that, and recognizing that your partner can't be everything for you. And so you can look to your community for these other things that you need in your life.
Do you think that the initial idealism of a partner can have detrimental impacts on the longevity of a relationship?
I want to make sure I'm understanding it right. Like, what we first perceive about this person, like, we're viewing them in a good way. Is that what you're
Yeah, like
saying?
super good way. That you're in the
Yeah.
honeymoon phase. You go,
Yeah.
whoa, this is the perfect person. I can't believe this. This is amazing. I'm absolutely in love. This is my soulmate for forever. And then we tend to neglect the potential negatives in that sense.
It's a really interesting question. And it's hard because for myself, and I don't know, I'm trying to explore why this is. I've always just, like, I don't mean this in, like, I hope I don't come across in like this, like, bratty way, but I've just been so fortunate to just, like, my intuition always just been strong. Like, I've been very privileged to not have, like, the fuck boy or whatever you want to call it enter my life. Like, I can always read people straight away, and like their intentions. And so, in that regard, I struggle, but at the same time, like, I do also believe that sometimes when like there is this innate just kind of like understanding when you meet some individuals, whether they're friends or more than friends or anything in between, you just you do know that there is like this deeper level to it, but maybe also too you have to be able to be at that level internally with yourself first before you can see it in others. Like there's that saying of like you can only meet someone as far as you've met yourself. So I didn't give you a straight answer there, and it's because I don't know. I wouldn't be. I can't
That's
say
the
that. I'm gonna
perfect answer.
question it. Yeah.
This is something I've actually never really been able to talk to someone about, but what are your opinions on the culture around relationships and sex, and what do you think the consequences of that are?
I want you to expand further so I
Sure.
understand where you want to go with that, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think that it's very hard to disassociate a sexual experience from an individual. And I think that's what's largely happened. I think that there are technological advancements that have resulted in that, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that there are also psychological consequences of that. So I think that people are able to go home and sleep with someone now and not have the long-term consequence of having a kid. And
Okay.
and so I think that people essentially end up, when you have a one night stand, you're disassociating the individual that you're having the one night stand with to you're disassociating them with the sexual experience, which obviously people want that really badly. But I think that we lose something a little bit when like the difference between having a one night stand and having sex with someone that you're deeply in love with are two completely different things. And I wonder what the implications of that are for individuals and then for a culture as well.
Mm. I really like that question. Again, I can only speak from my perspective. I am someone that I've never had like a straight up one night stand. Like I'll say that. Like I've never just met someone, know nothing about them, and then just like have an intimate physical experience with them. And for myself, it's because like I need to have that connection that's beyond the physical to like go there with someone. So maybe maybe I'm not the person to ask for that, but I do think that there is, as much as I'm like I do think that like people can do what they want, and I'm all for like people exploring themselves sexually and just like having that experience. I fully support it for people. um but I if I'm gonna be completely vulnerable, like the experiences that I do have in like such a loving relationship, like on a physical level, it's I think to myself often of like, man, like what I'm experiencing in this physical moment, I know that it's like not that many people experience it, so that I do wish that somehow I could show people how to experience that, but like I can't. Do you know what I mean? They have to
Mm-hmm.
experience it themselves. So I think that maybe me talking about maybe just more the concepts and more the intellectual aspects of the relationship, because that's really helped it manifest in such a physical, like such a beautiful way physically. Maybe that can help people as well. But I will just vouch that it is a completely different experience, and like the physical can change and really get more beautiful over time. Like I know that monotony is a thing in like long-term relationships, but I also think that once you know someone on such a deeper level, like when you experience that physically, like when you, if this is making sense, like it's such a powerful thing as well. Yeah.
I think you touched on something that is directly associated. That is the vulnerability that you experience when you have a long-term partner, and
Mm,
being able to dig into your traumas and alleviate yourself from traumas with other people and dig through your inner psyche to understand what your hangups are in life and why you act certain ways towards certain things. And I think that a part of that in a relationship, and why physical intimacy gets better over time, is because you develop such a trusting relationship with the person, and you're actually able to come together as one person. No
mm-hmm.
pun, no pun intended. uh,
Yeah.
I I always think of the Greek, so in Greek mythology, man and woman were at one point one.
Mm,
So two legs, four arms, two faces. I actually think there were three faces, but they were cut down the middle and separated from each other because they were too powerful for the gods, and they were put into different places so that they couldn't come back together. And that's what the idea of a soulmate is. I think that was from
Mm.
Plato's Symposium, was the creation of man. And so that's what the idea of a soulmate is actually coming together and rejoining with someone and being able to be yourself with that person.
Mm. I love that. I as we're expanding on this, I want to add in one more thing too, if
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. In regards to like, you know how I said earlier, like, oh, I don't know if this is my perspective. I want to just share more a little bit around my perspective around sex and relationships, so people can maybe understand. For me, I was actually unlearning the opposite. I found throughout my life, I grew up in a very religious, like Christian environment with like my schooling and things like that. So I was always taught that like sex is bad and like these urges that like humans feel were bad, and that one night stands shouldn't be a thing. So I guess from my life, I was always just trying to unlearn that. And then but at the same time, I just didn't resonate with this whole one night stand narrative. But I did question, like, is that something I am interested in? So I want to add that to maybe people listening, like, that is also where I'm coming from with my perspective.
Well put. It's funny, I'm on the opposite side. I was
Oh,
I was
really?
vastly encouraged by the culture I was in to
Huh.
explore as many partners as I could. And then over time I realized that it just didn't make me feel good.
Can I
And
ask a question on that?
yeah, of
Or I
course.
didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Yeah. Go ahead.
Do you think, was that because you were a male or because of other factors that you were like broadcasted that message?
Both.
Both.
I
Okay.
think it's a societal thing. I think
Yeah.
so there are a ton of different reasons why the different mating selection in terms of males and females. Like females look for something different than males look for. And
Mm-hmm.
like very, very different things. And I do think that it is built into males that you want to search for as many sexual partners as you can. And females are far more selective than males are. So it's essentially males will sleep with whoever they can, and then females are the gatekeepers of sex. But I think that I think that the technology of contraception and the pill are
Mm-hmm.
huge in the opening up of that field into females being able to just have sex without having long-term consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that before that, it was a lopsided game in the sense that it was far more risky for a female to have a one night stand than a male. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that and that's kind of why I want to dive into this, because I feel like you're someone that I can actually have this conversation with, in that I don't think that there's been a conversation about sex in our culture, like a broad conversation that we really need to have to understand this, because the divorce rates are going up and single parent households are increasing exponentially over time. And there are all these other things. And I think that all of that is within a conversation that needs to be held at a societal level.
Mm-hmm. Can I go back? Can I ask you another question on what we
Yeah.
were just talking about? Because I think you also brought up a really interesting point. So before we jump to that, if we want,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that growing up in maybe a space that was more encouraging and you exploring your sexual liberties has helped you feel more comfortable in your sexuality and in your sexual expression? Is like additional to you, like taking out the factor of you being a male, but maybe having the space to talk about these things and just it not be taboo?
I think the idea of sex always interested me, but I think that once it got to it, I realized that I really wanted to have sex with someone that I liked. And so I don't think I was dissuaded from talking about things. I actually think that I'm able to talk about a lot of these things because, like you said, that's actually a really good point. I think the culture of allowance to discuss these things enabled me to think more deeply about them.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that there was always some kind of societal encouragement to hook up when you're young, and that was something that I always liked the idea of, but the psychological consequences would haunt me for weeks to months after the fact. So that was something that I realized quite quickly, and it was something that I think that I tried to initially put off as something that was just something that I had to get over. And
Mm.
then as time went on, I realized no, this is just something that I don't actually like. I think I'm just sexually conservative for a variety of reasons. But and there's always such an interesting pull between those two concepts of sexual liberalism and sexual conservatism, in that the idea of just going out and having sex with someone is, that sounds really nice. Like, it is really nice to have sex with people, and at the same time, the consequences after the fact were just something that I couldn't deal with psychologically.
I could not like I could that 100%. But for me, I struggle because I'm still in this process. I'm still like in the thick of it. To be honest, like I'm so like proud of myself in this moment to be able to have this conversation, because even like a few months ago when I was first like really uncovering that, like, hey, this is something I feel really uncomfortable talking about and I want to explore why that is. And I think my childhood is a huge factor in it. But like even talking about like masturbation with my friends, I would get so uncomfortable. So the fact that I'm having this conversation now, I'm just, and I feel completely fine and comfortable. I'm like, wow, this is cool. But to your point, I completely agree of like, I'm on this fence for myself where it's like, I was taught the opposite of like, yes, they really encourage this like sexual conservatism. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Whereas like, I truly sometimes feel like I do identify with that though too, but sometimes I force myself, like, especially like a few years ago, I'd really kind of like force myself to like get out the courage and like, and maybe like drink a bit more and things like that. And I don't even know if that's always good. Like sometimes it can be a bit scary, like you're vulnerable, but sometimes it's like if I genuinely didn't want to do something, I don't have to do it, you know, even though society is like this very strongly encouraged, as you've expressed, like hookup culture and like you can swipe right and you can have like sex any night with Tinder, and I don't know. I've never really used those apps. So yeah.
I find the going out hookup culture to be interesting. There were
Mm-hmm.
there were times that I would actually, I would bring someone back to my apartment, like we'd all be hanging out as a group, and I would essentially just cuddle with someone, because like skin hunger is just such a thing, and that desire to just hang out with someone. And that was something that I was
In
very
hunger.
transparent of from the beginning. When I would, like, when someone would be into me, I'd be like, hey, I don't like to have sex, but we can just hang out and sleep on the floor or something. I don't really care, but it's just cool to have another human being around.
Yeah, it's human connection, and we innately want that. And I think a lot of times, I don't know, actually, I don't have the right to say this, but I'm just gonna say it. I do think that a lot of times, like it's like junk food. Like we're hungry, and when we eat this junk food, it's not nourishing us. So we're full, but like we're not nourished, you know. And so rather, if you're eating like a whole foods, like a beautiful meal, it's completely different, right?
Hmm.
Whereas that takes maybe a bit longer to cook, or you have to be a bit more patient to do it. Or you could go to McDonald's and get a fast food meal and just kind of fill that void, but you're not truly hitting that craving that you have, you know?
That's such a lovely analogy. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
I heard a line a while ago, and it was that people are going to see you in the way that you act,
Mm,
and they're going to understand you by the actions that you have, not the intentions that you have. So if you're going to be someone that is rather promiscuous and moves around and sleeps with lots of people, but at the same time you want this loving long-term relationship, you're not going to be attracting other people that want that loving long-term relationship, because they're judging you on your actions and not your intentions.
mm. I think that's great. I also like, if don't mean to get too wooey and like, but like I feel like that's also just like the universe and the world. Like when you start acting in alignment with like what you want to do, what you want to be, what you want your lifestyle to look like, you will begin to be provided with those people, those experiences, maybe that finances that you are putting out into the world as well, you know,
Hmm.
beyond like including your relationships. Yeah.